Namaste. Welcome to the beginning of another live Sangha. I hope you are well. I would like to begin with an invocation of the Gayatri mantra. So if you know it, you're welcome to join along with me. Om Bhurvaswaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. That one was perfect. As we await our first guests to arrive, allow me to set the intention for this space as being one in which we can all come together as fellow human beings to uplift each other, relate in one another's experiences, and share positive sentiments. Thank you. Hello, Sakiko. Welcome. Nice to have you here again. You are amongst the first here. And you and those who are joining, I trust that you are as well as you can be, given whatever circumstances might be prevailing in your life. Always good to check in with ourselves. Know that even if we are in an uncomfortable situation, how we feel is certainly valid. And this too shall pass. And hello, Jen. Welcome. Namaste. Hello, Dali. Happy to have you here too. Very grateful to be here, and I look forward to the opportunity to be able to connect and share understanding of things in this mysterious journey we call life. Now, while our Sangis continue to come, I would like to open the floor to answers to this question of the day that I have, and everyone is welcome to give their share of experience on it. Today I'm wondering, what inspires you about a new day? When that sun rises, what about a new day is inspiring? Hello, Alexandra. Welcome. Happy to have you here too. I think one of the most interesting parts of human existence is that it's structured based on various cycles, like days. It's not like the sun is always out or the moon. We go through periods of change and we cycle back to same sort of weather patterns, light angles. The world is lit up again anew every day. And hello, dear angel. Akiko, you share more kind and more loved. Yes, there is always the possibility for more kindness and more love. That's a great observation. Hello, dear Sky Guardian G. You share that it changes for you at one point, Swami Taratmanandaji videos, then food, now it's meeting Swamijis. Something new for you every day. I like that answer. Dear Gaia, you share the opportunity to get dressed again. Very true. Happy, we are both wearing such a beautiful color today of orange, color of the sunset, sunrise of fire. Welcome, dear Sufi Sidhu. Jai Shri Sufi Sidhu. Dear Angel, you share that we get the chance to create a new perspective every day. I like that. Yeah. Every day we have the chance of seeing something from a new angle. Ali, you share that it's a new beginning to discover and enjoy new adventures. I love that answer too. Something more to explore. Thank you, dear Tatvamasi, for blessing us with a quintet of roses to start us off in our Sangha today. Trust you are well, my friend. Jayan Sargadatta Maharaj. Dear Sky Guardian, you combine a name for God in Arabic with Sanskrit. Namo Bhagawate Allah Namaha. That's fun. You know, it kind of works. The flow of it, at least. Thank you, Sufi Siddhu, for your heart me as well. Radhe, Radhe. Although I know that in Islam, the idea of a personal form of God is often a point of debate. So I'm not sure if the adjective Bhagawati would be entirely accurate. Nonetheless, we are all personal forms of that same divinity in a very small sense. Hello, Aesthetically Pharaoh. Thank you for your good night wishes, dear Ro. Welcome. Hello, Doom Knight. Lovely Joy, you ask, what do I do to meditate? How do I meditate? You know, I just try to be entirely present with whatever is going on. Even if I'm involved in some activity, that can be a kind of meditation, as long as we are engaging in the principle of karma yoga, union in action. That is to say, we renounce the possibilities of our action, making peace with them, and strive to see the value in the activity itself. Dear Satoru, you wonder who am I? I ask myself that in each moment. Dear Bubbles, you share that every day is another day to use life as practice for liberation. I love that. Aesthetically Feral, you share that you love learning, and knowledge is what inspires you. I like that. I would ask the follow-up question, what do you like about knowledge? Perhaps that's a more difficult one, but thank you, Lovely Joy, for your trio of roses too. Radhe, Radhe. Dear Hazard Cider, you ask, do I think there's a version of the witness that gets a kick out of our shenanigans? Of course. Not just any version. That's very witness that is always present, watching out through our two eyes, our two ears, smelling through both nostrils, each side of the tongue and laterality of our skin. That witness is the all-enjoyer of all of our shenanigans. There's no doubt about that. Tattvam Asi, you share that every day could be a new beginning. It doesn't even matter the time of day. I like that. So, we arbitrarily designate 12 o'clock midnight here in modern times, our culture, as the start of a new day, but other cultures do it at a different time. We could just as equally say noon or 3 p.m. or 7:45 in the morning. And in fact, regardless of our cultural norms, each moment we can see as a time to begin anew. didn't we? Thank you, dear angel, for your heart me. Your tiny. Yippee! I hear it say, and your team bracelet. Hare Krishna. Dear Magdalene, you share the ways in which you are able to creatively express your love outwardly. What an inspiration. Dear Katie Pond, you share that you are able to have your morning glass of water, a simple reminder to have gratitude for a necessity. I like that. How simple, how pure. A new day means you get to keep asking yourself what inspires you every day. Grateful for that always. How beautiful. John F., you share the opportunity to live a better life than the day before. With all the mistakes we can learn from, all the knowledge and experience we've come into contact with and processed during our sleep. Yeah. Dear lovely Joy, thank you for your trio of music plays too. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hello Assad. Divinely guided, you ask about the shape of our world. I think the world is like a big heart, personally. Some people say it's like a big spheroid. Some people say it's flat. I say it's like a big heart. And I hope that regardless of what each of us say the shape is, that we listen to each other's experiences and have love for one another. Good night, Sakiko. Like a chickadee carrying a hash brown through the air. I like that. Aesthetically feral, your answer to what you love about knowledge is a beautiful quote. Curiosity killed the cat, but the satisfaction brought it back. It's fulfilling to learn. It is. Thank you, dear Hybrid Jen, for your disco love. Om Namah Shivaya. And Gabriella, thank you for your heart me. Ram Ram. Dear Andy, from Liverpool, England, home of the Beatles. Your inspiration is waking and breathing. Everything after that is a bonus. I love that. Hello, Dopamine Queen. Welcome, Nume. Mischief, you share knowing that life is going to show you something new again that day. I love that a lot. Chloe, you are not sure. You don't know. That's okay. You can take as long as you need to. It's okay. You can take as long as you need to process. Sky Guardian, you share good times, you kind of miss it, so you just go with that. There's always the possibility to bring out joy and goodness. Thank you, everyone, for exploring this question of the day with me. I am so grateful that I have a chance to be inspired myself by all of you, and certainly being able to do a live stream, although silly as it sounds, is one of the things that certainly motivates me every day, because I am honored to have people like yourself here to connect with across the interwebs. So thank you for that. Thank you, dear John F., for your friendship necklace, your finger heart, and a tiny. Yahoo! TRVL, you ask if I speak Spanish. Yo no hablo español. And New York, Las Vegas, LA. You ask if I smoke. Well, I try myself to be like fire every day. And if smoke emanates from me, that's how you can tell that in my heart, ignition has been met. But no, as for substances, I find everything I need within. Thank you, Starlight Wow, for your flowers too. Dear Adam Hot Dad, you would like for me to talk to you about Mount Meru Danda. Yes, the churning rod. The stick of the mythological mountain, which was used to churn the ocean of milk to extract Amrita, the nectar of immortality. What is this danda? What is this stick? It is your very spine, just like the staff of Hermes. Once energy spirals around it, there can be no stopping your liberation. Beauty, you ask if it's getting a bit cold to be outside. A little bit, temperatures dropping quickly, but it's also getting darker, so the sunlight is no longer as visible. Hello, dear Alex. I remember you. Welcome back. And Athena, you share that the good and bad thing about life is that you never know what will happen the next day, and that inspires you. I love that. Pardon my hiccup. Dear Jen, thank you for your balloons too. With your balloons, may we go higher and higher. Hari Om Tat Sat. Welcome, dear Michael. Like your connection with fire and sannyas and vidya, dear Sky Guardian. DRVL, you ask, how did I learn Sanskrit? To be honest, 90% of it comes from just being in an environment in which Sanskrit is spoken, just like any language. Naturally, you pick up on it if it's being spoken. And given that I don't live in a physical place where Sanskrit is spoken, then I surround myself digitally with places of the internet, like YouTube videos and online classes of teachers that often use Sanskrit heavily in their vocabulary. Welcome back, dear Chloe. Lagonan, you asked, what gives me quietness and self-acceptance? Knowing that I have the capacity to do better every day. Because self-acceptance doesn't mean that if I stayed how I am forever, I'd be happy. It means that in this moment, I am capable of learning, of growing, of healing, of serving others, of loving. All of those continual possibilities are part of me. I accept that as the highest part of myself, which is able to transform the world around me. Happy you like the color orange too, dear Nume. Thank you. It was my favorite color when I was a little boy. Dear Sup, Alex, you were wondering what my thoughts are on Christ. I believe that the Christ is an example of an avatar, which is a technical word in Sanskrit that refers to a descension. Literally, the verb in English, avatar, comes from, well, in English it's a noun, but it comes from the verb in Sanskrit, avatarati, which means they descend. What is being descended? What is experiencing dissension? Well, the higher self, of course, and occasionally a fellow human being opens way for the higher self to be expressed through them. In other words, their lower self becomes put aside for this lifetime, and they represent the divine. And there have been rather few of them in the West, but in the East there's a rich history of such avatars, dissensions of divine truth. And each one of them represents the same divinity, regardless of religion or faith. And I think we can learn from all of them as we continue on our individual spiritual paths. Namaste, dear Dr. Jenny. Yes, I did minimize the question of the date, dear Numi, but you're welcome to keep thinking about it as I transition to other parts of this live stream. And welcome, dear sweet baby. Happy to have you here again. And hello, dear Joey from the Philippines. I love the diversity of people in various different geographies and times. Dear TRVL, you ask, were psychedelics a crucial part of my journey? As I won't let you type the real word. It's understandable. They are a sensitive subject, and I do not endorse their use. It just happened that my journey had an opening for me, which was made possible by certain psychoactive substances, but they were only the door opening. You know, once you walk through that door, you leave the door behind. Once it's open, right? But that's only because the door was closed that I needed it opened. If it's already open, then is it crucial for everyone? No, people who are brought up and open-minded environments, especially one with an inclusive spiritual community around them, they do not need by any means any form of external substance for them to awaken. Unfortunately for me, I am not sure if I would have otherwise, because I was incredibly stubborn. And I'm grateful for it, but just as soon as they entered my life, they also passed me by, and I'm happy where I am today. Dear Nume, you ask, what brings me comfort when I feel anxious? You know, the way you worded that question is a tricky one to answer, because it's not comfort that solves anxiety. It's discomfort. It's the allowance of being uncomfortable. The seeking of comfort is one of the motivators for anxiety. If we constantly surround ourselves with comfort, then in some sense we imprison ourselves by that. Anxiety is a sign to move past your comfort zone. And this was a dawning moment for me during my anxiety, that a huge portion of my resistance to this experience was because I didn't allow myself to be uncomfortable. And the solution was, therefore, to do things that were uncomfortable, even while anxious. Allow myself to be in public, talk with people about sensitive issues, do chores around the house, even if I was feeling anxious to the point of throwing up. Actually, by allowing myself to be uncomfortable in those situations, allowing myself to be vulnerable, I found peace. So it was, in a very ironic sense, an avoidance of comfort, which allowed me to transcend anxiety. Angela, you asked a great question, but wouldn't that make you more anxious? That's exactly the question which our anxiety is producing. But if we have trust that actually it's our wanting to be so coddled and comforted by pleasant experiences that is the root cause of our anxiety, then the moment we go beyond that, the moment that question also dissolves. And hello, dear Matt. I am well. How are you, my friend? Dear Sup Alex, you share that you have heard that the spiritual center of the world is located in the mountains in the east. Do I think that could be why? It's no doubt that mountains hold spiritual significance for so many cultures. It is from the mountaintop that Jesus gave his first public sermon. It is from the mountaintop that God was revealed to Moses. It is from the mountaintop that the archangel Gabriel came to Muhammad, peace be upon him, the prophet of Islam. It's from the mountains that the rishis delivered their Vedas. Almost every culture has a story of going to the mountains to reach divinity. And I think there is so much beautiful symbolism in this. We could spend a whole live stream just talking about that. For example, we talk about the divine as what's above in the heavens. So climbing up a mountain, we literally get ourselves higher, closer to the skies. Also, a mountaintop is quite a journey to get to. It requires a lot of effort to be able to climb that high. So too, the spiritual practice requires a lot of effort. And also, there is only one highest point on each mountain, yet 360 degrees worth of angles to climb to that top. So regardless of the angle of approach, east or west, one may get to the same top. It's clear that in our society in the West, there is a lot of individualism, and that too is happening in the East as well. It's catching up, but there is spirituality to be found in each hemisphere of the world, just as preserved in a different way on each side. Hello, dear Kevin. Nice to see you too. That's why the yogis go to the mountains to meditate. But that's too, dear Alex. Courtney, you had asked if farts hold power. Absolutely. If farting is one way in which you can clear a whole room of people without saying anything, especially if you ate a lot of broccoli or Brussels sprouts or other vegetables. Actually, farting is one of the 5 Apana Vayus, I believe, which are the vital energies of the body responsible for elimination, responsible for taking something which the body is not using anymore and releasing it back to Mother Nature. That's in contrast to the 5 prana vayus, which are used for taking energy from this world. But truthfully, although it's a funny question, actually, even farting has spiritual significance. Hello, dear Matt. You were wondering, when did I arrive in this world? Well, that's a very kind way of asking. When I was born in this body. The 1st of October, 2001. which in the American calendar system is a nice palindrome. No, sorry, the international calendar system, it's a nice palindrome. 011001. The first of the 10th month of the first year of this millennium. The American calendar system, it's 100101, which is also a very nice number. 37 in binary. Dear Starlight, wow, you share that your young boys are obsessed with farts and are both good farters. Well, as Freud says, it's a part of our development of the psychological model of development at that age. And that's right. I guess that would make me a Libra. Dear Susan, and good night, dear Alex. You share that your mental health has been so much worse recently, and you have a lot of important decisions to make. And you're so lost, could I just send some clarity and, you don't know, energy? Thank you for bringing some love. Has it been worse from the sense of actively your mental state is deteriorating? Or does it only appear so relative to the responsibilities that our society may expect you to fulfill? Are you experiencing a lot of tears, maybe feelings of heartbreak, withdrawing from the world, unable to attend to those around you with the same amount of energy? Because all of that is a sign of growth. It's a sign of bringing your energies more internally to process something probably traumatic that has happened recently or even in our childhood that now we're opening up to process. Sometimes the darkest phases of our life are actually the times of the biggest growth. Like when you're rearranging your room, halfway through, everything's in disarray. You've got boxes piled up on others, pieces of paper on the floor, and that one chair in your room is dedicated to holding all of your clothes. If someone were to walk in, they'd think, wow, you've gone nuts. But if they were to take a closer look, they'd see, actually, you are doing everything that you need to be able to reconstruct this room to make for a better living environment. So too our mind, in the middle of that changing, can appear to be out of order, but that's because we're restructuring ourselves in many different ways to make a better living room on the interior. Talk about interior design. So I hope that clarity brings you the understanding that you are absolutely allowed to feel as you are during a period of great inner transformation. Thank you, Diana, for your Heart Me and Team bracelet. It's never expected, but always appreciated. Jaya Sitaram. Thank you for being here, wow. And David, thank you for your heart me. Om Gang Ganapataye Namaha. Dear Sky Guardian, you share that a scientific article said female farts smell worse. You swear you remember reading that somewhere? Well, of course. You know, because in our society, ladies aren't expected to. So they're always holding it in. And then it ruminates. And it builds up. Finally, when it does come out, ooh, pee-oo. But if we let off the pressure and allowed them to express themselves more freely, perhaps it wouldn't be so bad. I'm happy you can resonate with that forever all over the place. Lako, and then you ask if we could see the kitties today, if I could at least go and grab them to the camera. Maybe. They're currently outside still, and I will leave them be. But I will keep in mind your wish to see them soon. Dear Susan, you share. I'm happy that you are thankful for those words. And you feel it is making you grow, but it's so hard to finally make your own decisions after you were just listening to someone else's voice. And damn, you wish you didn't have to be perfect. You wish you didn't have to be perfect. The good news is you don't have to be. But it's true. Taking a long time is necessary when it comes to discovering your independence, and you are perfectly situated in the process. Remember that it's the process that's enough. It will never be enough to be somebody that is perfect, because there's always something more perfect you could be. But perfection is found not in the ideal goal of where we're headed, it's in the fact that we're along that direction anyway. You will get there. And when you get there, you will have another sight to see, some other mountain to climb. What matters not is what height you are at in your journey, but you have a path forward at all, and you are certainly on that. In this moment, you are healing, you are learning, you are growing, and it's that ing, that's enough. Don't worry about some hypothetical state where you're healed, learned, grown in the past tense. In this present moment, you're engaging in what it means to be alive. Thank you, dear Isabella, for your finger heart. Here's one for you too. Hari Om Tat Sat. And dear Hybrid Jen, thank you for your disco love a moment ago. Om Bhur Bhuvaswaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaf Prachodayat. Om. Dear Jial, thank you for your heart me and tiny. Om. Dear David, you share that you like to say that you live with a perfectly dysfunctional family. I like that. Though we are all perfect souls at the highest level of our being, at the human level, there's lots of room for growth. And it's meant to be that way. Dear Nume, you ask, is there any sort of job I would like to work at, or being a spiritual creator is the ultimate goal? For me, I love helping others, and I have found personally that my greatest outreach is possible doing something like this at the moment. And although it is not exactly a high-paying salary, that's not the point. Is for it to be a job. It just so happens to be enough to cover my living expenses at this moment, and that's more than I could ever ask for, all voluntarily given. So thank you for that possibility. Now we've had a good introduction to our live stream so far. I would like to now read to you from another section of this book that we have started just a few days ago, called Hollywood to the Himalayas. I'm just going to dive into the next section. Afternoon became evening, and I sat on the cool marble steps lining the banks of the flowing Ganga River in Rishikesh, India. As the sun began its descent, as the final rays of light danced on the waters, the sound of Vedic mantras filled my ears. I stopped giggling long enough to remember my vow from the airplane to keep my heart open or leave India. To mock an instruction as seemingly useless as the one I had received today might be breaking my vow at the moment it was most needed, particularly as it had come from the mouth of someone revered as an enlightened master, particularly as my breath had stopped when he said it, particularly as I felt more comfortable and more at home in my own skin while sitting in his presence than I had ever felt before. During the evening light ceremony called the Arti, I allowed myself to be swept away by the song, the music, the chanting, by the fire. I allowed myself to be swept away by... Did I read that already? I did. The incense weaving in and out and through each other in a dynamic tapestry of ecstatic prayer. A boy in yellow placed a flaming brass lamp in my hands. Like this, he gestured in what looked like a clockwise movement. Later I learned that the motion for waving this lamp is in the shape of the Sanskrit symbol Om. I faced the river, waving the lamp in clockwise circles until my time was up and the boy took it away. After the ceremony, as the guests began to disperse, I walked calf deep into the river. The moon rose over the mountains and glistened on the surface of the water. The current tugged so forcefully on my legs that I wondered if I would have to give not only my pain, but also my entire body to this river. As the chanting dissipated in the background and the flow of the river tried to wrest my feet from its sandy bottom, I entered a silence so deep it was a place in itself, wrapping me in its arms. In that place of silence, I bent down into the water and carried out Swamiji's instructions. I cupped the river's water in my hands and offered all my pain, all my tears, and all my fear into the water I held in my two hands. You must forgive him, Swamiji had said. Give your anger and grudges to the water, and then pour it back into the river. I stood up to my knees in Mother Ganga until the moon was directly overhead, all the while calling forth every image that had ever caused me pain, that had caused me to dissociate, that had propelled my head into the toilet vomiting. I recalled countless images that had formed the unbearable background of my life. Then, in the midst of these images, I saw him, my biological father, Manny. And from this place of imperturbable silence, I saw not a monster, but a troubled man who had made mistakes. I saw the violence and the sin he wrought upon me as simply mistakes of this disturbed being. I saw a man now far away who could no longer harm me, whose life was just as haunted by these choices as mine. And I saw a man who loved me despite his inability to express it. I saw a man I could forgive. Tears mixed with the water in my hands, and I prayed and cried and prayed and cried, all in silence. These were tears not of yesterday, but of today. Tears of release rather than terror, knowing I needed to embrace what is rather than what might have been. I called his image to mind again, stared deeply into my father's eyes and said, I forgive you. Then I let the water pour from my hands back into the river. Take the pain, I prayed. I give it all to you. In the weeks and months that followed, the pain that had coursed through body and mind my entire life lost its grip. I tried recalling memories of abuse to make my body shudder again, to bring back a state of unbearableness within my own body that was more familiar than the peace I was experiencing. I called forth every scene that had triggered terror and dissociation, to no avail. The memories were there, no less vivid than before, but I no longer identified with them. They weren't me. I could no longer dissociate. There was no longer more than one part of myself into which I could split. There was nowhere to go but here, whole and complete. The only split that remained was the part of me that knew the pain had been released, and the part that could neither fathom nor accept concepts of spiritual healing, grace, or the possibility of a life without pain and pathology. The latter tried to shake the former back into victimization, while the part that knew remained quiet and still. Slowly, over months and then years, the knowing has become more pervasive. When I spoke to Pujya Swamiji about the miraculous transformation inside me, and told him that I no longer felt like the same person who identified with the suffering, he nodded and said, "Once the switch is found and the light is turned on, it no longer matters how dark it had been, or what the molecules of darkness were made of, or from where the darkness had come. What matters is that now there is light." Thus we conclude the prologue to Hollywood to Himalayas, the journey of this Western woman to find spiritual grace in the East. Thank you for listening, and we'll continue exploring her journey next time. Namaste. Now we can open up our Sangha to discuss whatever's on our hearts and minds. The curse of having big voluptuous hair is that there's always a strand or two rubbing up against my nose and cheeks, making me itch. Thank you, dear David, for the friendship necklace that you sent. Radhe, Radhe. I'm happy to hear that story has been resonating with many of you. Dear G to Infinity, on a lighter note, you ask, is that a Star Wars shirt today? It's not just any Star Wars shirt. May the F equals m times the derivative of velocity with respect to time be with you. Thank you, dear Roxy, for your tiny. Yippee! Namaskar, dear Ragnhildr. Hope you like that shirt. It was a gift from my mom many years ago. I've triggered dear Sky Guardian G. No! I hated differential equations. I failed the Laplace transform. They are a bit of a nightmare to college students, that's for sure. Thank you, dear Hybrid Jen, for your 10 roses. Ram. And Isabella, thank you for your trio of roses too. Bram Bhairavaya Namo Namaha. Dear Tattvam Asi, you ask if we can ponder about quantum entanglement for a bit. Interesting question. I don't think I'm qualified to formally discuss the nature of quantum entanglement, as I don't actually know how it works on a mathematical level. Imagine that its behavior can be traced to the wave function, as all things can be. But informally, entanglement is when two states, which may appear independent, are actually dependent. And so the revelation of knowledge of one state spontaneously brings about knowledge of the second state. A simple example would be like when you were a child and you went out into the cold and you forgot a glove somewhere. Maybe this was a winter glove, and you came back inside, you said, "Mom, I lost my glove." And she said, "That's okay. We can actually get a replacement for the one you lost. Now, which one did you lose? The left glove or the right glove?" Well, you hold up your hands and you see that you still have a left glove. What does that tell you about the glove that's still somewhere out, many, perhaps miles away in the snow? Immediately you know that it must be the right glove, because that system was entangled to begin with. You knew that beforehand a pair of gloves must have a left hand and a right hand. No matter how far they may be separated, discovering the left glove tells you that the other glove must be right-handed. And this happens at quantum level too, where we know beforehand that the pair of electrons, for example, must come spin up and spin down. Therefore, no matter how far you separate these two electrons, when you discover that one is spin up, that immediately tells you that perhaps on the other side of the universe, the other electron is spin down. Now, in the case of gloves, it's not so surprising because they're made to be only in one state, but electrons can be in multiple states, and possibly at the same time before you even discover what state they want to be in. You could say in that moment that there's really no reason that one electron should be spin up and the other should be spin down. But the moment you discover that, immediately you gain knowledge across the universe of the other one. That would be an example of quantum entanglement. Actually, there is a spiritual analogy here. Everything that can be discovered about the world that tells you something about the spirit. Because everything in this world is finite and temporary, that must mean that the spirit must be infinite and permanent. Because nothing in this world gives happiness for long, that must mean that the spirit must give happiness forever. So there is a kind of entanglement between the world and the spirit. What we discover about our world, the complement is true. for the spirit. So, thank you, dear Shakira, for your heart me as well. Hari Om Tat Sat. And grateful human, thank you for your hat mustache. Om Ganga Napataye Namaha. Hello, dear Macy. Tatmamasi, you ask about quantum entanglement. But if you change one, the other is affected. Spooky action at a distance. Not exactly. Unfortunately, it's not as amazing as what you might have gathered from social media. It's not like if you move the electron, suddenly the other one moves. It's about the wave function collapsing simultaneously, which is a whole concept in itself. According to the wave-particle duality, that a particle exists in the form of a wave until it is observed. And so for some reason, observing an entangled set of particles, just by observing one counts as observing the other. It doesn't actually change the other one, but the wave function does collapse, which means that its state is determined by the collapse of the wave. And what do I mean by collapse of the wave function? That's a big concept by itself. The wave function is the probability distribution of where that particle is, or what state it exists in. By itself, a particle does not exist anywhere in particular. It's just kind of this blurry blob that extends across the universe, but is concentrated in one location. The collapse of the wave function means that once you interact with that fuzzy blob, then it appears to be localized at any part, with the probability of it being interacting at any point corresponding to the height of the wave function. So once you observe it in one location, and the wave function is said to collapse, thus it is in that spot. So for example, two electrons who are entangled on opposite sides of the universe, one is spin up, one is spin down. By discovering that one is spin up, you immediately know that the other is spin down. It doesn't change anything to the electron. The change happens to you because you are suddenly in knowledge of the state of the other electron. Now I have to verify that this is a real live stream, and I seem to be struggling at it. There, I had to solve a one-piece puzzle on my screen. Thank you, dear grateful human, for your hat and mustache a moment ago. Very fun. Ram. And dear Angela, thank you for your rose. Om Namah Shakti Shivaya. And Deanna, thank you for another rose from you, dear. Hari Om Tat Sat. Susanna, thank you for your rose. Hare Krishna. Dear Dom, you ask about any belief of supernatural. What is supernatural? That it must be that which is so natural that it's super natural. Must be that which is more natural than anything else. What's the most natural? I'd say love. Love is the most natural. That's super natural. It's only natural. Love arises. I believe in that. Love is Mithya, share Sky Guardian. word meaning temporary. Not divine love. Romantic love, yes. Conditional love, yes. Intimate love, indeed. But love is Brahman. You can't call Brahman Nitya. The nature of love is Satchitananda. Truth, consciousness, bliss. Love is just another name for that. That divine love, unconditional love. Never come and go because it always is. Hello, Xime. Dear Stephen, you ask, do I know how many times I've been reincarnated? Well, it's a simple equation. We can figure it out. Alright. Let's get a lower bound. You know what a lower bound is? It means the minimum. The minimum amount of reincarnations we have had. We do so by making some simple assumptions. Alright. All we have to do to get a lower bound is to take the age of one's consciousness and then divide it by maybe the largest time possible for any reincarnation. And because most reincarnations would be less than that, then that would give us a lower bound for how many. Alright. So let's start with the longest incarnation. It would have to be on the order of trillions and trillions and trillions of years. Because that's how long a universe lasts. And there's no way to outlast the universe. So let's just say arbitrarily, I think 10 to the 10 to the 10 to the however many years is the expected time for heat death of the universe to take place. Now that we got that constant, we just divide the age of consciousness, and that gives us a lower bound for how many incarnations we've had. So, what is the age of consciousness? Well, consciousness is that which time does not touch. By definition, it's the subject of change. So it by itself must be eternal. So we take eternity, we divide it by 10 to the 10 to the 10 to the whatever years. That's infinity divided by a very large number. Well, doesn't matter how large that number is. If it's not infinity, then infinity divided by any number is still infinity. Therefore, the lower bound for how many lifetimes anyone has had is infinite. Which means we've all lived the same amount of lives, and that is infinite. Thank you, dear Jason, for your heart me too. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hello, Jay. You ask about what's on my bandana? We've got cats wearing other bandanas. Dear Jay, you shared. No, you've lived just four lives. That's right. Everyone except for Jay has lived 4 lives. Or only, sorry, everyone except for Jay has lived infinite lives. It's a good round number. But yeah, Neat Pink Shark, you had asked while we were doing that, how to determine the age of consciousness. It's a simple setup. See, consciousness doesn't actually have an age. And you could say that that makes it eternal, but you could also say that that makes it ageless. In other words, zero. No, you just don't give it a number. But the truth is, we can't actually ask the question, the age of consciousness, and expect to get any finite number just by definition of what it means to age and what it means to have consciousness. Consciousness is the changeless subject which experiences your birth, your youth, your adulthood, old age, and death. Therefore, as the experiencer of that change, age does not touch it. Age only touches the physical, the material, but not the spiritual. Dear Sky Guardian, you share. So, you know what's given you panic attacks? You learned protons are actually permanent, and you thought nothing in this world is permanent. And now that is giving you panic attacks. To learn something permanent that is material exists. See, you are partially right. According to my knowledge of physics, protons are the only stable composite particle made up of quarks. They are a hadron of 2 up quarks and a down quark. And according to our theories of quantum electrodynamics, a single proton by itself, keyword by itself, should never decay. That is to say, if the only thing that exists is just one proton, then in theory that proton should always be a proton. However, protons do decay when subjected to other forces. For example, a proton may release an electron neutrino as well as a positron, and then it converts itself into a neutron. And that's an example of beta decay that many atoms, radioactive atoms, go through. For example, in positron emission tomography, they inject people with a substance that releases such positrons because their protons are in the substance is decaying. Also, there was a time before protons existed in our universe. That was during a phase that the particle physicists called nucleosynthesis, in which the first nucleons, like protons, were synthesized. Before that, it was just a quark-gluon plasma. So even protons undergo change, and that's because of the relative existence of everything else. So now you don't need to have a panic attack that there's some exceptional law to the permanence and impermanence of objects in our existence. Another example is if a proton were to come into contact with an anti-proton, it would turn into something else, particularly light, pure light. And we can extend that to every particle in existence, even fundamental particles. If they come in contact with their anti-particle equivalent, it'll convert into pure energy. It makes it slightly better. I'm happy to hear that. Dear Macy, you ask, is it possible to do something wrong in this life? Well, wrong implies that there's some objective measure of what is right versus what is wrong. But that's something that we decide. It may be a decision that we collectively make as a society, or based on an individual's experience. But it's always relative to our experience. Even if we make a decision that's wrong to our societal standards, or some guy named Bob, or even our own standards, that doesn't mean somehow our track record is now etched in time and the universe will forever consider us as a lower being and we won't get to experience happiness. Always is there the possibility of learning from our wrongdoings, and therefore, no matter what a human being is capable of, there is still the ability to make amends, even if making amends requires the most difficult decision they have yet to make in their whole life and requires the rest of their life to achieve. I believe that is possible. Not to scare you, and I don't mean to imply that the rest of your life will be made trying to fix a mistake, but that there's the possibility now until the rest of our life to be able to learn from our mistakes and make each moment a more informed one that is more inclusive. And that's how we learn in general. Thank you, dear Old 89, for your rose. Hare Krishna. Dear Jay, you ask, if you were traveling at the speed of light, then turned your headlights on, would anything happen? That's a classic question that arises in Relativity, because Einstein said that pure information, which is massless, any information which is massless, energy that has no mass, it must be traveling at the same speed, the speed that light travels at, the speed that gluons travel at, the speed that gravity travels at. All pure energy must travel at the same speed, and that's 1 Planck length per Planck time. Planck length being the smallest amount of distance that's recognizable, and Planck time being the smallest amount of time that is recognizable. All forms of pure energy travel 1 Planck length per Planck time, which is very fast. In terms of kilometers per hour, that's like 300,000 kilometers per hour, I think. So it begs the question, if that's always true, then if I was driving really fast, and in particular probably really close to the speed of light, because no matter can be accelerated to the speed of light exactly, maybe 99.99999%, whatever the speed of light, and then we switched on our headlights, would a paradox ensue? Because if we're already traveling at that speed, and then we switch on something that's going to be double that speed, has the speed of light doubled? Actually, this experiment is what gives rise to time dilation and length contraction. What will end up happening is that no, the light will travel at the same speed. It is just that to you, distances will be contracted to make up for that, so it won't feel like a doubling of speed. As such, at very high velocities, that addition of speeds no longer works, and in fact there is a division according to some constant. It's like you add the speeds and then you divide by some number, and it just so happens that on slow and small time scales that what you divide by is so close to 1, so it appears that velocities add, but on relativistic scales, velocities don't actually add, and there's some more nuanced geometry to take into consideration according to the length contraction and time dilation and other wacky effects that happen very close to the speed of light or in other extreme gravitational environments. And thank you, dear Humble, for the heart me you said. Brahm Bhairavaya Namo Namaha. Dear Sky Guardian, I'm very happy that you're expressing such love. Thank you, dear Usha, for your hand hearts. Here's some for you and your trio of tiny dinies. Yippee! Hello, dear Kari. Dear Katie, you ask if I have a podcast. I don't, but I'm grateful that you find soothing qualities and eloquence in my voice. That's why I always upload them, in case anyone wants to find value in them by listening to them. But I think while we're here, it's even better than a podcast because you get to direct the flow of the conversation. Very funny, dear Jay. Thank you for your well wishes, dear Humble. Dear Mara, you ask, how much money am I making right now? Well, I'm happy to be here regardless of the money. It definitely depends because it's all given voluntary. I don't ever expect even a single rose. Sometimes it can be as much as $20 for maybe a 5-hour live stream, which is amazing because, as I said, I don't even expect a single penny. And usually it's much less than that. However, I'm just happy to be here with you all. And if I really wanted some more money in my life, I could, even minimum wage would provide me more per hour. But the love that I experience per hour, that's much higher than anything I could ever get at a job in my society. So it's the love per hour. It's much larger. Thank you, dear Gaia, for the rose you sent to him. Ganga Napataye Namaha. Thank you for being here, dear Tone Reds. Dear Pascal, you ask if I could please answer your question. I can. I would hope that we meet at some kind of human level. I know that coming from your beautiful vocabulary, you're speaking from a very high level where we are divide and everything, which is very beautiful. But at the human level, I hope that we can find some common ground. Dear Gaia, you shared that there are bombs in your country and you feel low. What to do? You feel like you're the worst person. My goodness. It's certainly not your fault if there's conflict happening around you. But I don't blame you for feeling like that. I suppose in a similar but different sense that at the level of being a child, sometimes we feel like the conflict between our parents is somehow our fault. It doesn't logically make sense, but yet this is one of the first things that we come to a conclusion with when we are young. that we bring so much joy and love into this world. If we don't see it, that somehow that must be our fault. But that's not true. Actually, it is it is an opportunity to bring love to those whom need it when we are surrounded by suffering. That no matter what happens to the level of the body and the mind, your true nature is untouched. It is from that untouched plane of reality that you are in full, infinite, and ever blissful as a soul, as a spirit. From that, through our body and mind, we can give that love to the world without ever running out. And when there is times of tragedy around us, though we do not wish for that on anyone, there's also an opportunity for us to find purpose in being able to help others. I certainly pray that the world becomes a more peaceful place, and I know with beautiful people like you will be able to attend directly to such conflict. And in any way in which I can be your supporter from afar, I will. Thank you, dear Kev, for your heartbeat. Radhe, Radhe. You share that you can't work. You feel inner conflict, and that you have nothing to give, drained, dead almost. You don't know how, like before, the old ways are gone, that you need help maybe. Sounds like there is a lot of suffering that you are experiencing, which is understandable. You share that you sleep little and eat least. I gotcha. In any way that you can get some more rest, some more nutrition, that's important for your body, for your mind. There's lots of love in this universe, and you are that love. Remember that if the world around you is in pain, that doesn't mean that you are touched by that pain. From the highest level, you are infinite, unbound, full of love. Truthfully, that true self of yours does not need anything because you are already whole. But for as long as we are identified with our physicality or our mentality, then it appears that we are in need. But actually, our bodies and mind, they provide places for our own love. And taking care of our bodies, allowing people to take care of our bodies and minds too, is just another way that we give love to this world. Because that higher self can never be truly drained. There's nothing to drain about the infinite. Even if you take 1,000,000 out of infinity, it's still infinite. No less infinite. Because our bodies and minds are also part of the world, which we are separate from, then taking care of the body and mind is yet another way in which we give back to this world. And so one need not feel like they have to somehow take care of other people's bodies and minds before their own, when showing others how to take care of themselves is one of the things that we do by taking care of ourselves too. Remember that you are not alone in that. what you are experiencing is relatable, and the more that you allow yourself that experience too, the more you relate with others around the globe. And through our darkest times, we can find a lot of inner light for us to bring more awareness to and shine upon the world around us. And dear Gaia, thank you for your rose. Hari Om Tat Sat. And Thomas, thank you for your rose too. Radhe Radhe. I hope I can continue to understand dear Gaia. You are already where you need to be. Inside, you are home. Home isn't away from what you're experiencing, it's in the experience. It's the spiritual dimension that pervades life. It's the possibility that's always there. It's the potential. No matter how dark the world gets, always latent is the light. You may say that you never wish you went in search for truth. But the truth is, if you feel like that, you have yet to find the truth. Because the truth is that which is uplifting, healing, all-inclusive, full of love. People who say that the truth is hard to swallow doesn't realize that the truth is smaller than an atom, the most minuscule, the most subtle. Truth is simple. Truth is that which brings healing and love and light into this world. Any truth that causes fear is not truth. Fear, by definition, is the lack of truth. Only by truth can fear dissolve. And thank you, dear neat pink shark, for your pair of tiny dinies. Yippee! Your rose, your finger heart, your balloons, your fire, your confetti, and a pumpkin spice latte. Radhe, Radhe. And yippee! Thank you, Dob Darkar, for your heart me too. Namah Shakti Shivaya. And dear Thomas, thank you for another fire and Rosa. Om Brahm Bhairvaya Namo Namaha. Dear Angela, you ask, how can we not be impacted by pain when it is so rampant among us? No one is saying to not be impacted by suffering, because at the level of the body and mind we will be. It's that at the level of consciousness you are not. And it's not like a state that you could be in, but you're not now. That suffering affects some people's consciousness and not others. It's that no one has a consciousness that can truly be affected by suffering. It's an impossibility. The mind definitely can be traumatized. The body experiences trauma too. But you are neither of those things. And even if you don't realize it, you're still not the body and mind. Even if you don't know that you are separate from suffering, you're still separate from suffering, even if it doesn't feel like it is. So even now, when it feels like you are being impacted by suffering, actually, you're not. It's just a feeling that we've placed identification in, that I am the one that suffers. But still, the sentiment might remain that somehow we should become non-attached to the suffering of this world. And at a spiritual level, though that's already true, that doesn't mean that we should become indifferent to suffering, that we should not stand up for justice or not take care of our bodies and minds. Because as I said, being free from suffering is only true at the level of consciousness. At the body and mind, we still have to attend. And it fulfills our purpose to attend to that suffering, to bring love and light to our body, our mind, and other people's bodies and minds. Only that which is untouched by suffering can alleviate the suffering of others. So, by engaging in help, in healing, in serving, in loving, we occupy our consciousness. We are engaging in the truth of our Satchit Ananda by being servants to others, by taking care of our body, our mind. So at the human level, absolutely be moved by pain and suffering. Empathize with it. Go and search for those whom you need to help. And remember that your help is an expression of the fact that your highest self has been beyond suffering this whole time. Thank you, Neat Pink Shark, for your pumpkin spiced latte, for your heart me and pair of team bracelets. Radhe oh Radhe. Dear Logan, you ask, how do you become more spiritual? All we have to do to answer this question is remember what this term spiritual means. Spiritual means in relation to the spirit, the essence of your being. If we simply bring our relation to the essence of our being, then we become spiritual in everything that we do. If we are reading, ask ourselves, to whom do these words occur to? What part of my spirit do they express? Then your reading becomes spiritual. When you are walking, you ask, to whom do these steps occur to? Who may I see and share my love with? Then our walking becomes spiritual. When we are sleeping, ask, to whom does the sleep occur? What spirit am I connecting with during this time of rest? Then our sleep becomes spiritual. Anything we do in relation to spirit is called spiritual. All it requires is awareness of the subject of our action. And I like your quote, dear Thomas, that suffering is a friend that knocks the door to remind you that something is not right. I like that. Dear Sky Guardian, you ask, how does one spiritually take a dump? Just as we talked about farting before in reference to the 5 apana vayus, excretion is one of the 5 karmendriyas. Just like we have 5 jnanendriyas, the 5 organs of perception, which include sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch. We have 5 karmendriyas that interact with this world. One of them is the excretory indriya, which is used for letting go of substances that we have already extracted the nutrients of. So the clearing out of things which we have already attained nourishment from, that is spiritual, because it teaches us the art of extracting that ghee from the yogurt, that clarified butter, and then releasing that which is left over from the purification. There is a spiritual lesson in everything, you see. Dear Bress, thank you for your heart meat. And tiny. Yippee! You ask it as a joke, but the real joke is that we don't find everything to be spiritual. That's a joke on us, that we have divided this world into some activities which are spiritual and some which are not. But the essence of karma yoga is just that. We have unnecessarily created a duality between what is spiritual and what is not. If the truth of the statement Sarva Kalvidam Brahma is true, that all this is that spiritual essence we call as Brahman, then we must find a way of finding it in everything, no matter how big or small, no matter how silly or goofy or taboo. Everything spiritual. Thank you, Babiso, for your heart meat, team bracelet, and cheer you up. Om Kamalir Mahakalikai Namaha. That's right, dear Sky Guardian. It is food to flies and nourishment to soil. When it comes from almost any other animal, we call it manure, which we love because it feeds our crops and brings more food to this world. And the cycle of creation, preservation, and destruction continues. Dear G to Infinity, you share that you sense that many of us are experiencing physical discomfort as we transition to the next season. Hence, you send healing awareness to everyone tonight. I wish to amplify that healing awareness for everyone in the form of 3 ohms. The first will place emphasis on the akara, the creation. The second, the ukara, the preservation. And the third, the makara, the dissolution. May possibilities be created, life sustained, and challenges dissolved. I love your point of balance, dear Tattvam Asi. That bad smelling manure produces good smelling flowers. I like that, which means if you smell really closely, within the manure you are able to smell the flower before it has come. And when that happens, when you are able to smell the flower in the manure and the manure in the flower, duality dissolves. Now, why don't we take a little interim? Let's explore another of 108 Adages of Wisdom by Master Sheng Yen from a Chinese school of Mahayana Buddhism called Zhan. Let's explore protecting the spiritual environment by unpacking the following verse. Conflicts usually come from an overassertion of personal views. There's a comic that comes with it of two people literally butting heads, with a poor puppy looking up and wondering what these people are so upset about. First person says, "I will never yield." Second says, "Neither will I." Poor puppy. So if conflict usually comes from an overassertion of personal views, and that means resolution must come from compromise, from allowing ourselves to find some point of agreement, even if that means backing off from some of our own personal views and agreeing with theirs. And we can do that by beginning to understand that even if our experiences on the surface are different, that doesn't inherently imply that that difference is an invalidation of our own unique life. And actually, so much of our experience is similar than different. We just have to first find the unity. Perhaps that comes not from agreeing with the exact set of circumstances that another person is dealing with, but that we both know what it's like, for example, to experience heartbreak, anger, sadness, joy, that we both want to be happy in some regard. And we know what it's like to be without something that had brought us joy, even if the exact circumstances surrounding those deeper sentiments are different. Below the surface, we are all more alike than not. So that's another adage from 108 Adages of Wisdom. Thank you for listening. Namaste. Thank you, dear Inevitable, for the rose you had sent to Mani Padme Hum. And thank you, dear Gaia, for your trio of roses. May I continue to be of service in any way that I can. Radhe, oh Radhe. Hello, okay, it's Believe in Me, Jackie. You ask, where do I get all my knowledge? All of my wonderful ideas to bring peace to so many people. You wish that many people thought like me. Thank you for finding peace in my words. I trust that that peace was already in you. Perhaps I just brought it out, but that's my honor and not something I can take credit for. But when it comes to where I get my ideas from, a lot of it comes from just living my life while paying attention to the lessons that are naturally there. What's so brilliant about the human mind is that we are able to find lessons in everything. We just have to apply ourselves. It can be as simple as looking at where we place our phone on the table. We can ask, did I consciously place it on top of this book because I feel like what's happening on my phone is more important than this book I want to read? There could be a lesson there in just the way we placed our phone. We could look at it a different way. Am I placing my phone on this book because to me this book and its contents represent stability and foundation? It's subjective to me, and that means that I can find meaning in everything, even if it's just the act of placing a phone on a book. But in bigger ways too, all the little instruments in our lives. By instruments, I refer to the incidents. Each incident of our life is like an instrument, and with it, we can learn a new tune. Every challenge is an opportunity. We may read a book, and it has knowledge in it. We may go to some teacher who shares knowledge by word of mouth. We may go to a course or a class, but where did they get all that knowledge from? Maybe they got it from other books and other teachers and other classes and courses. But where did those books and classes and courses and teachers get their knowledge from? Eventually, it must come from someone's direct experience. And that direct experience is there for you as it is for me, because we all have the capacity to find something meaningful in this moment. So I heard a beautiful quote the other day that if you want to become educated, then you read a book. But if you want to become enlightened, then you read the fine print of your soul. In other words, look within your own experience. Books can only give education. They may educate you on how to find enlightenment, but enlightenment cannot be given by a book. There isn't any set of words that you're going to read and then suddenly it all makes sense. It can only point you on the direction of finding that truth within your own experience. And yes, dear you Gray, ultimately that knowledge comes from the divine. That the source of knowledge is non-different from divinity, which means simultaneously that when you discover God, you discover truth. But when you discover truth, you also discover God's secret identity as truth itself. That you are in the presence of divinity whenever you learn something new. Because that newness, the very definition of that source of life, thank you, dear Peter, for the rose you sent a minute ago. Somaya Namah. And dear Michael, Thank you for your heart, me and Rose. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Trey. Dear Okay to Believe in Me, Jackie, you had also shared that it's difficult to learn lessons when others you deal with don't see life that way, but in ways they think they know it all. But that's a limitation you've placed upon yourself. We can learn from others even if they don't see it the same way. It's just that what they teach us might not be what they want to teach us. Instead, we found a lesson in the boundaries we've had to set with them, or in the differences of our thoughts, of our belief system. But the most challenging people in our life are the ones that provide us with the most lessons. It's just that the teaching comes from our relation to them rather than from what they want for us to learn from them. But no matter how heinous another person may be, they know something that we don't, because they've lived a life that we haven't. If we can navigate past all of those things that we don't like about someone, there's always something, at least something, that we can say, even if I don't like you in general, I appreciate how confident you are, or how devoted you are. Even if what you're confident about or devoted to is not something I personally agree with, I could at least find inspiration in your level of confidence or devotion. For example, in that way, the challenging people in our life do give something to us too. For instance, hello Dub Pikachu. Dear Kev, you shared that life experience can help us understand better than words. All words, they must come and go, but the experience remains. Yes, we should use other people's experiences, but what ultimately remains is our own. And by that I mean the truth of our experience that others may have helped us realize. See, I can explain the whole story of my life to you, but it's only if there's a part of my story that's also shared with your own does any sort of revelation from hearing mine happen. So we listen to others, but not because they have something that we don't. It's because they have experienced something of our own which we are able to understand now from a new light that they shed upon us. What they have is an angle to see something that we also have. What is to be attained ultimately is what we already have, but it's that angle that other people offer in which we are able to gain a new vantage point. But at some point we have to travel along that angle to get to the destination, and then the path that we got there can be let go of. Just as they say in the ancient sayings of Sanskrit, that one requires a thorn to be able to pry out another thorn, but once that other thorn has been used, it can be let go of. This is the thorn of ignorance which is stuck in us, and the thorn of a teaching which we can use to take out the thorn of ignorance. But at the end, we even let go of the teaching, since it's another type of thorn. Just so happens that we're using it in a way that helps rather than hurts. But we can get that thorn of teaching stuck in us too. Then we need another teaching to be able to pry out that thorn. But it all must be let go of. Here's a fun analogy. Consider a beautiful field full of flowers and wildlife and trees. And then technology overtakes it. And suddenly all of these factories get built. They pollute the environment, and our beautiful meadow is no longer there. How can we remove that technology in order to return to the state we had before? Well, we have to use more technology. We have to then use technology to deconstruct the technology. And then what remains is our technology we use to deconstruct that. Then we get finer tools to be able to deconstruct that. And then even finer tools to deconstruct those tools. So too, worldly knowledge is ultimately the ignorance preventing us from realizing our spiritual truth that is there before. But still we need a kind of worldly knowledge to be able to deconstruct this worldly knowledge. These teachings that are mithya, that are transient, we use them to deconstruct old teachings. We use new learnings to unlearn old things, and then we use even newer learnings to unlearn that too. But eventually what remains is a blank state where there are no reservations towards what we see, and it just appears as it is. And thank you, Zoko Loco, for your Rosa, Heart Me, and Team Bracelet. Om Dum Durgai Namaha. And dear Renvox, thank you for your ice cream cone. Hare Krishna. This is all from the standpoint of Vedanta, by the way. And hello, Violet. I am well. Thank you for being here. And hello, dear Becca. Dear Mischief, you ask, but isn't technology a form of creation? Isn't that what we are supposed to do? Create? Indeed. Unfortunately, however, our creations can also bring about our own destruction. And destruction can bring about more creation. That analogy I gave of deconstructing our technology is because the meadow is already beautiful in itself. We can be creators to this garden without building factories that extract its resources and use to create commodities that are eventually thrown in landfills, etc. We can be creators in ways that don't involve taking away from our environment. For example, it's in that way, I mean, we are creators indeed, but we are also preservers and destroyers. In Hinduism, for example, the Trimurti can only exist relative to each other. Brahma, the creator, must also have Vishnu working alongside in the form of preserving what exists. And that must also have Shiva, a destroyer, there to make room for new creation. If there's only creation, then we run out of room because we have a limited canvas in order to create. If there's only preservation, then there is no change. And of course, you know what happens if there's only destruction. Therefore, we require the divine to engage through us, not just in the form of creation, but also through preservation of what is, like the natural landscape, and of destruction of what is taking away from our ability to do more creation, like factories that are polluting the world, for example. Thank you, dear Renvox, for your ice cream cone too. Namah Shakti Shivaya. And Mermander, thank you for your heartbeat. Hare Krishna. I have to tell you a funny story, dear Mermander. Since you sent me a lovely card and book, I had left that on the table where I had opened it. And in that time, my mother found it, and she thought that it was so cute. She took a picture of it and sent it to my grandparents. And so when I was with my grandparents yesterday, my grandparents said, I heard that someone sent you a card and a book. I was thinking, how did you know that? So thank you for that. And that's right, dear Floater. I do have a Star Wars shirt. It says, may the Force be with you, but with an equation for force being equal to mass times acceleration, which is of course the change of speed relative to the change of time. Doom Knight, you share that it seems physical reality is more of a trinity than duality. Is there any truth to that? Absolutely. It's from duality that a trinity emerges. From that one wishing to perceive itself, so that one separates into an object and a subject. But it is in the balance between these two parts of the duality that a third balancing force arises as the bridge between the two. Just as how that one can be referred to as a creator, and when separated into a subject and an object becomes creator and destroyer, but the balancing force between creation and destruction is preservation, and so a trinity arises. So too there is this moment, and from this moment we can divide it into the past and the future. But it is the present which balances that, thus creating a trinity from a duality. You could also say that life is divided into a duality of wakefulness and sleep. But dream is what bridged that gap too, and so there is a trinity there. From unity comes duality. From duality comes trinity. And the numbers proceed one by one. As Stephen Hawking said, God created the integers. True quote from Stephen Hawking. It's actually the name of one of his books. I hope you enjoyed that story, dear Mermander. And if I am hard to follow, dear Maverick, I'm always able to slow down and clarify anything. Thank you, Anastasia. It's a beautiful term, metamorphosis. Dear you Grey, you ask, how did I become so knowing? I think ironically, by waking up to how little I know. If you pay very close attention to everything I share, most of what I share is actually in the form of a not knowingness rather than a knowingness. That is to say, it's in the form of a mystery rather than some definite conclusion that seals the deal. That comes from an opening of being mystified rather than some ending of understanding. Just as we were when we were children, we could talk endlessly about the nature of what could be and our limited experience. It's that endless quality of curiosity which gives rise to a transcendental sense of knowingness. We do not know what we don't know, and therefore there is a knowledge of how much there is to know. Thank you, grateful human, for your hat and mustache. Om Ram Bhairvaya Namo Namaha. Mischief, you share that you need a reading list. You share you're so behind in understanding all of this fully. That's the trick. The moment you give up trying to understand it fully is the moment that it begins to click. Hello, dear Claybeard. I am well. Thank you. And in other words, as Violet shares, the moment you believe you know, you stop trying to learn. Anastasia, you ask, does not knowing scare you? It would, so for as long as there is a danger in not knowing. But this kind of not knowing is not a life or death kind of knowledge. It's a life or life kind of knowledge. That what it means to be alive is not to have all the answers. In fact, it's to have all the questions. Thank you, dear Eco. Wishing me pregnancy for 2024. Yes, and may I give birth to a spiritual kind of delivery unto this world, lest I be lacking the physical faculties to make it happen. Thank you, grateful human, for your hat and mustache. It's very fun. And thank you for your tiny too. Yippee! Anastasia, you relate with having existential depression. How do I deal? You share the therapist gets confused when you talk to them. I love that. You share that you grew up in a religious household. You're agnostic, but you're still scared of your quote-unquote salvation. Yeah. Fear-mongering has truly no place in religion. The moment that someone attempts to cause fear is the moment that it's no longer spiritual. It becomes some kind of worldly power conflict, which goes against the entire purpose of coming into harmony and unity of truth and light and love. Salvation, as the Christians call it, is just another term for enlightenment or illumination or self-realization or so many other terms that exist in cultures around the world for spiritual transcendence. And the simplest way to know if you are in the direction of any of those things is to ask yourself, every day, am I understanding more about the kind of conflict that I'm in? Do I see the possibility for more truth, for more peace? Am I becoming more devoted to love? Are there things that I can learn from yesterday that I can do now today? And this means you are going higher. Higher means in the direction of salvation, enlightenment, illumination, self-realization, etc. If the goal is to be free from suffering, to be peaceful, to be all-loving, then if you feel like every day you learn more about what that's like, then that must mean that you're getting closer in proximity to it. So don't worry about people saying that you're not on the right path because they're unable to find the truth in your experience and they're only able to see it from their limited worldview. That only says something about where they are and almost nothing about where you are. In fact, you can almost take it as a compliment because it means that you're in a territory that they're unfamiliar with, which means you're beyond their comfort zone. Having that validation must ultimately come from inside. There must be a kind of trust in yourself. Worry not about others in that way. The only thing we have to worry about others with is if there's any way which we can be there for them. They have no opening in that regard, then we can thank them for their time in our life and move on. Namaste, Bobby Joe, and welcome, dear Marlin. And I like your addition, Maverick. Don't see it as a conflict, this life, Joe. There's a lot of truth in that. As long as we feel like there's something to fight with in this moment, then how can we truly be present here? Dear Link, you ask what I identify as. I am happy to be here. I suppose that's my identity. I am looking forward to what I can learn from you. I am on a journey. These are things I identify with. I am not sure what I'll call myself tomorrow. I am aware of the possibilities of life. And Mina is sleepy. Sleepy, eepy even. Sounds like your experience, dear Anastasia, became even more inclusive to aspects of life that you didn't have an experience with the religion you were in before. Ultimately, we're all headed towards the same truth. Same truth that you're headed towards now is the same truth that you would have been headed towards if you stayed. It's all one truth, just expressed in different ways. And just as we are different people, we require different expressions of that truth in order for it to register individually. But, you say, Anastasia, you don't know if we are all just one being or not. Well, you speak of it as a matter of belief, but it's just a simple matter of definition. Are we all part of the same universe? Are we a part of the same planet Earth? Same life? Do we all know what it's like to feel pain? Do we all have the possibility of loving? If the answer is yes, then it's a simple fact. We must all be part of one being then. There we have different bodies. We have different minds. And don't be scared, individuality does exist. When people say that we're all one being, it doesn't mean that our individuality is an illusion or anything like that. We absolutely have individual bodies and minds and personalities and belief systems and experiences and emotions. We live such a unique life individually like that. It's just that deep down, we're part of the same being. It doesn't mean that each of us are the entirety of everyone else. It means that we're all part of the same whole. In that sense, we are both one and different. One at the level of spirit, different at the level of the world. And there's truth in both realities. Thank you, dear Silent Storm, for your heart me. Hare Krishna. And I know you had mentioned a few minutes ago about existential crisis. That was one of the biggest ones for me, is that I had misunderstood what it meant to be all one. I was scared of the same possible fact that maybe all this existence is just selfish and an illusion, and that I am hallucinating everyone else. But as I became more experienced, I learned that that's not the meaning of that spiritual truth. No, there absolutely does exist different people, different expressions of that being. It's not that we are all one. It's that together we are all one. It's in our communal connection. It's in the ability to be a part of a greater whole, which is greater than ourselves. At the level of the world, that we are one. In that way, we can revel in the nature of the spiritual truth without giving ourselves existential dread. So don't worry. Yes, last Thursdayism. It's a funny belief. But we know from experience that all that really matters is here anyway, in this moment. Even if everything happened last Thursday, there'd be no meaning in that. Meaning is found in the continual present moment and all that we go through. It's in this moment that all things are made possible. Not last Thursday, not the Thursday before that. Right now, we feel like we've had a long journey, and there's truth and meaning in that. There's really no reason to invalidate that. No spiritual truth can take you from the genuine feeling of presence and meaning you've had in your life thus far. So at the highest level, there truly is only comfort. Just a kind of comfort that makes room for the challenges of life, big or small. Kind of comfort that we rest in, even during trauma, suffering, heartbreak. Deep down in this moment, there's always that possibility of rest. Very funny, dear Greg Archie. Next Thursday, though, that one holds some potential. Welcome, my friend. Thank you, Giuliano, for your whipped coffee. And like caffeinated beverages that give energy, whipped around in a mixer, I hope to mix around all of our identities to form a greater whole, so that we are energized in the diversity of our community. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dear Greg RG, you ask if we've done show and tell today as you look forward. I have not prepared a show and tell today. There was one show and tell segment that was offered, which was a listening to a Maori song from the indigenous people of New Zealand. However, I know that it's copyrighted, and so I'm not sure if I'm willing to play it. It's also one that I think many people have heard before. It's very beautiful. Maybe we can leave it to the end of a future live stream, just in case I do run into copyright trouble. Even though I don't mind so much, I leave it at the end, so if any flag gets set, it's just at the end. Thus we have a smooth sailing time until then. Dear Greg RG, you shared that the Maori are cool. Legend says they had to leave the homeland and then landed in Zealandia. I've heard of that. I've also heard that there might be some indigenous connection with places like Easter Island, because the indigenous name for Easter Island in some languages around the world translates to homeland. It makes you wonder if Easter Island was this homeland for many indigenous people that went around the world, or vice versa. Anastasia, you ask if I'm in college. I'm not right now. I dropped out a few years ago because my priorities in life changed. And I discovered that I truly just want to be with my family, focusing on a simple life of health, of spiritual practice. And those things I was not able to express through my studies and the responsibilities that came with them. Bobby Joe, you're wondering where you can find the Maori song. Let me open it up and tell you what the title of the song is. Did I open the right one? It's called... You heard just a second of that. It's called Aotearoa. pronounce that. Aotearoa. Aotearoa. You know, I'll just give you the name of it in chat. That's the YouTube link. I don't know if that'll come through on your end. Meant to copy and paste just the name. Aotearoa. And hello, dear Kara. Thank you, Anastasia. I believe you are all on the right path. Dear Greg RG, you ask if we've all seen the game where you name a song after only hearing 1 second of it. Oh my goodness. I think you all would do much better than me at that game. I believe you, Neat Pink Shark, that if I play copyrighted music, you won't say anything. But it's not you I'm worried about. It's complex algorithms that are always ongoing during our live stream and during the uploading to YouTube afterwards. It's an automatic system, I'm afraid. I am unfamiliar with who that person is, dear Bro Void. Another automatic system that is always ongoing in this moment is our faculty of discrimination, viveka, which is always discerning between what is satya and what is asatya, what is something we should be paying attention to and something we should not. Depending on how we tweak the workings of that algorithm, we can continue to bring our awareness to that which is permanent and that which is impermanent. Dear Tattvam Asi, you share that Brahma determines the peak and trough, Vishnu and Mahesh. Where is the free will there, or is it on the next cycle? I am unfamiliar exactly with what you are asking, but recall that we too are agencies of Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara or Shiva. They have invested in us our own domains of creation, preservation, and destruction. For example, with our body, we can choose to create, we can choose to preserve, we can choose to destroy. That is our free will. But there are limitations to it. Dear Anastasia, you share that you don't want to live another life if reincarnation exists, and you don't believe nirvana is possible. So if you don't want to be here, and you don't believe that anywhere else is possible, what do you believe in then? You can't have such a limiting belief system because then you'll never grow. There must be something that you bring your awareness, your love, your attention to. Only then can this moment be made into one in which you feel comfortable to be in. See, it's only because you have yet to find meaning in this life that you feel like there's no value in having another one. Only those who are truly suffering feel like they don't want to live. But that's actually unfair to yourself. Why? Because if you cast yourself into oblivion, how will you get to express all of that love within you? See, this is the mistake. We feel as though the suffering is not supposed to be what we're having as an experience. We feel like some cosmic mistake has been made. We feel as though we're not supposed to be here, that we should be experiencing peace and joy and love. But what we have yet to understand is that this is the only place where we can express that. We are already the source of love and joy and peace that we are looking for. We can't find it because there's nothing to look for. You cannot separate your true essence from yourself and then perceive it as separate, which is what we're paradoxically looking for in some heaven or nirvana. But that's impossible. The only thing that can be done for the sake of experiencing love, peace, joy, etc., is to express it from within. The only place that we can express love is in a world that is in pain. From one point of view, it's an unfortunate truth, but what other possibility could there be? If the truth of your being is love itself, then the only way you could experience that love is to give it to a place that it's in need of being expressed to. In other words, there must be some pain, someone hurt. There must be some problem. Our world exists in conflict so that we get to experience love by giving it, that we experience peace by emanating it, so that we share truth by creating it. It is the problems of this world that inspire that discovery of what's possible from within. There is no shortcut where we leave this world and suddenly discover that. There is nothing to discover without a canvas for us to paint the truths of our soul. And that's what the suffering of this world is. You've experienced trauma not according to some punishment, not according to some mistake, but because it's the place in which you get to grow from, learn through which you get to relate with others who are also going through such suffering. It is the very challenges of life that are opportunities to discover the truth and the joy and the happiness and love that are capable of being received by us. Imagine, if you will, a magic teapot. I've used this analogy before. This magic teapot you can never run out of tea with, no matter how much you pour. But if you don't believe me that this magic teapot is truly magic, the only way you'd be able to gain trust in that truth is by having a place to continue to pour that teacup. You could pour 1 cup of tea. All right, there must be some tea in it, you discover, but that doesn't prove that it's infinite. You pour another cup of tea. There must be some more after all in it, but that's not enough to prove it to you. So you keep pouring into each teacup, and as long as there is another cup for you to pour from, then you experience the truth of your being as being able to pour. This is the same truth for our heart, Within, there is a kind of love that is unending, and that's the true nature of ourself. But we won't believe it until we're given a place to pour that love. Once we pour that love, it's not enough to prove that there's infinite. There must be some in it. But this world continues to provide us space to put our love so that we can come into contact with the love that is within. There is no other way to discover that. We have to have a world which is full of conflict, which is full of problems, which is full of this challenging experience, in order for us to have the possibility to share that love, to solve problems, to heal, to serve. In a perfect world, there would be no room for us to love, because everything that could be loved is already full of love. There would be no room to discover any truths, because everything that is to be discovered is already there. Such a state is no world I want to live in, because such a state is like death, where one does not get to experience any more love, any more growing, any more experiencing of the truths of one's being. Therefore, salvation comes the moment we realize that the struggle and strife that we experience in this world is the vehicle of our soul to experience itself by manifesting what's possible through the help that we can give, the service that we can render, the healing that we can send forth. When this clicks, there is no nirvana that needs to be attained other than this. There need be no fear of returning to another birth. In fact, we pray that we live in this world full of suffering. For as long as we are able to give to it, we are able to experience the depths of our soul. But let me be clear that we do not wish the suffering on anyone, because that suffering is the very thing that we eliminate with our love. But we can be grateful for a chance to be able to understand just how much is already within through the process of giving and discovering that we still have not run out. No, of course we don't like the pain and suffering, dear Angela. But you don't have to like it to love it. This body definitely does not like pain, this mind neither. You know, when I was being challenging for my mother, she said, "I don't like you right now, but I still love you." She didn't like me because I was being a brat. But she loved me because still there's something about me which she knows is worthy of that love. We might not like our experience of life, but we can still love the greater whole because there's something about it that is worthy of our love. Dear Anastasia, you share that the loss of love feels like a terrible cosmic joke, and for many people through life, it feels like hell. You share that it's not fair, and that you would have never chosen life if you knew about the pain beforehand. All of these expressions are true to your experience right now. Yes, many people do experience life in very different ways. But what's not fair is to assume that there's not value in people's lives even if they've experienced suffering or trauma, because that assumes that their experience is not meaningful. Even someone that goes through great suffering has a meaningful experience and gives to this world. Yes, there is an element of humanitarianism that we should continue to seek the possibility for an equal chance at life for everyone. That's our duty as human beings, to create that possibility for others. But to merely say that someone's life was not worth anything because they experienced suffering, that's a personal problem that still has to be healed from, and it's not the ultimate truth. Why? Because some of the people who have experienced the most suffering are the ones that end up giving the most to the world through their experience. When you have felt the darkest times that can be felt, then that means you can connect with people at such a level that other people could not. The most traumatic events bring out the greatest superpowers in people. Like, for instance, those who experienced childhood trauma from an abusive guardian. They are able to connect with their guardian's emotions because to them it meant whether they would be able to express themselves or not without being hurt. So that ability to be incredibly empathetic, though originally coming from trauma, it comes from suffering. Later in life it becomes the greatest ally, because you become the most empathetic person, able to perceive the emotions of others without them even using their words. That superpower, empathy, comes from trauma. There is no other way. All of the greatest virtues in life must come from some period of challenge. Through our challenges that we're afforded, we grow and we learn. There is no other way to be empathetic, to be loving, to be patient, if we don't know what it's like to go through the challenge of those experiences beforehand. It is through that suffering that we are able to connect with the people around the world. And through that suffering that the greatest help can be given by those who have lived through it and can tell all those who are currently in it that there is another way, that I have survived this, and therefore there was meaning in my experience. And that is something we can learn from each other. You share that you wish you could use your suffering for good, but you don't know how. And that is the next step for your journey. Even though we might not know how, that possibility is always there. And once it opens up, then there's no question of us living a different life, because we find the value in this right now. We see how much has been made possible by our unique experience and the truths we have gained from that. How much empathy is able to be gained for this world by knowing just how much suffering is possible ourselves. Pardon me. So, although it may sound like I am being critical, actually I hope you know that it comes from never giving up in finding meaning in your experience, no matter what the suffering is you may have had, no matter how broken and battered and bruised your mind and body may be, there is always something within you that is untouched and can use that experience as raw potential to show the world what is possible. And I will always be a supporter of that. And while this whole conversation is ongoing, I do not wish to invalidate your own experience. Because the truth is, for many people, that we don't see it like that we wish things could have been a different way, that we see what's possible and we know what could have been. But it's that ability for you to see what's possible is the greatest truth. Because in negativity, possibilities are made. By definition, when we say that someone is in pain, we only point that out relative to the possibility of them not being in pain. In other words, being healthy or joyful. When we say that someone is rude, we only point that out in relation to the possibility for more kindness. When we say that someone is lying, we only point that out compared to the potential for honesty. It's just that we get so caught up in what could be that we get attached to it, and then compared to our attachment, this present moment becomes sufferable. But there's a way of accepting what is right now, whilst also seeing the possibility and bringing ourselves and our communities in that direction without getting lost in the attachment. There is a way of validating the suffering that exists in this moment, as well as the possibility of what could be, and find value in the process of unearthing that potential, in manifesting that. And that is the creation of goodness, the ability to spawn forth love and light from the dark. It would not be made possible without a space for it to be. And that is what these circumstances of life do for us, is compared to the situation we are able to see something higher. Just one step at a time, we find meaning in the process. Is compared to the situation we are able to see something higher. Just one step at a time, we find meaning in the process. My connection returns. I think my connection bugged out for a moment, but when it has returned, please let me know. It's back, good to know. I was thanking dear Val for the 10 roses you sent just a few minutes ago. Hari Om Tat Sat. And dear Hybrid Jen, thank you for your 7 roses. Ganapataye Namaha. Dear All Divine Maze, you ask if we all could put your brother Eric in your prayers as he's currently in the hospital. Of course. I pray not only for Eric's successful treatment, but also for your acceptance of the blessings that Eric has already been afforded, such as the fact that he is in the exact right position to get the help that's needed. He is being treated by the right people, and he has the most wonderful sibling that cares for them in such a way that you would selflessly share awareness of your brother for the sake of his life. All of these things are blessings that already exist for your dear brother, and I hope you find peace in that too. Thank you, dear Starlight Wow, for the roses you sent too. Hari Om Tat Sat. And Psychedelic Karma, thank you for your rose. Radhe Radhe. And thank you, dear Angela, for your friendship necklace too. Om Brahm Bhairvaya Namo Namaha. These are Sanskrit mantras for you. Dear Kalki Ji, you ask, is there a process by which jnana, knowledge, and vairagya, detachment, can be revived in the world? Of course. By reviving themselves in you. We cannot control the whole world. But what control we can gain over ourselves, this much we can do. All the great spiritual masters that came before us, did they ever try to get worldwide change happen? By telling everyone what they should be doing? Or did they work on themselves and through the radiance of their own jnana and vairagya attract people who saw what's possible within them and then voluntarily asked for help in that way? Therefore, show the world what's possible, and naturally they will come to you. Dear Jayla, you ask, how young am I? In each moment I feel like I just got here, but I've been having those feelings for about 22 years. Dear Bubbles, you ask, what is the context that the mind creates for you that you get the most attached? Dear Bubbles, you ask, what is the context that the mind creates for you that you get the most attached? So the belief that we are missing something, and therefore we are incomplete, and thus the world becomes elevated to the illusory status of holding the key to our fulfillment. Contexts such as, for example, the Garden of Eden, when that serpent said to Adam and Eve, "You are naked. There is nothing wrong with being naked. All of our fellow animals do it. For some reason, we believe it's wrong when we do it, because we feel like we are missing some modesty. We are missing some security, that actually vulnerability is a weakness. In that context, suddenly, we are put in a position lower than the world. That this world is this authority which is above our own, and therefore there's something this world has that we don't. Maybe that's something we need to protect ourselves from, or something that we need to gain from it. At the moment we believe like this, then of course we're going to be suffering, because then we'll be doing everything we can to fill that void, to somehow feel like we're doing something right. When someone markets some item of commodity as that which will finally bring you happiness, like you need this in order to be happy, then we've placed our sense of self in the world, and then we are attached to an illusion. This is the context. in which, according to our thoughts, we think like this, that binds us to this world. But the follow-up question is, what is the context in which this dissolves, in which we realize our wholeness already? What is the context of mind in which we understand that there's nothing we need from this world? It's the context which puts this world in a position of missing something, and ourself in a position of filling that void. It's the context in which we see something that can be improved, and thus we deliver that improvement. A context in which we see our fellow brothers and sisters fallen in this world and we help them up. It's this context in which we see a place that could experience more love, and thus we offer that through service. In this context, we see that it is not the case that there's anything we need from this world. Actually, the need is within us to give to this world. And by giving, we understand our wholeness. If we were not already whole, how could we give? Because to bring more love and peace in this world implies that you must already have those things within you. Even if at the level of body and mind you feel miserable, if you are able to make another person smile, that must mean the spark of joy is already inside you and can be shared. Pino Meow, thank you for your heart. Ariom Tat Sat. Dear Anastasia, you share that people would tell you you're going to hell for your doubt. You can't believe in such an evil God. And good for you, because no God of mine is evil. If some God requires of us to follow some arbitrary rules and beg at his feet for mercy, then that's no God. That's a human. Because the only being that I've ever seen engage in such cruelty was a fellow human. I'd know in the heart of hearts that the source of this universe is all loving, all joyful, that the source does not care whether you have sex before marriage or not, as long as you are staying safe. I know that the divine does not truly care whether you are at his feet begging for mercy or not. If anything, that source wants you to be free, live your life. That source sees the highest potential in you, but with no expectations. That source knows that the goodness inside you will one day come out, and there's no punishment for there being some timeline on that. That God I believe in, a God that's funny, recognizes that humor has its place, a God that has no reason for power and punishment. Only that source do I believe in. That source which is not separate from this universe, but one with everyone. That source which expresses itself through you, through all the lovely little creatures, the ants and the trees, through my mother, my father, my sister, my furry feline friends, Sandy and Shadow. That divinity which is within everything. That divinity which is found at the heart of all people, whether they are Christian or Buddhist or Muslim or Hindu or Jain. No matter what, where, how, who you are, that divinity must be within you. Only that God do I believe in. Thank you, dear Abundance Love, for the rose you sent to Ariom Tatsat. Dear Psychedelic Karma, thank you for your rose too. Jaya Sitaram. And you're right, dear Angela. Well, some might say, if there is a God, then why would he let so many starve? Why would he allow so many to be without homes? And to that I say, it's none of his business. Because it's our business as humans to be able to provide love and homes and education for others. That's a lesson we're still learning. It is us who has made all these problems for each other, and therefore it is us that is empowered to make a difference. This lesson is ours to learn. Therefore, it is up to us to make that difference. Remember, people pleasers think that they should solve all the problems of others, but simultaneously devoid them of learning the lesson they need to discover their independence. God is not a people pleaser. He does not solve our problems so that we may depend on him. God wishes for us independence. Therefore, it depends on us to do good for this world. To stop in our way would be to take away from our free will and our ability to make a difference. But some might say, how then would we allow maybe babies to die of such diseases, people to starve, lose their family, never to see them again? How would that divinity allow such unnecessary suffering? Wouldn't there be some intervention? But many miracles happen. Ones that we don't even recognize are. For instance, we do not recognize the miracle of the fact that nothing bad ever happens to the soul. You could be blown up in a particle accelerator or thrown into space. You could be tortured for years, but your true self is immortal. It is only this body, this mind that goes through change. But actually, that true consciousness does not experience the suffering of the body and the mind. This is not a belief. It's a conclusion we reach by the definition of our true self. That self is incapable of being destroyed, of starving to death, of getting lost. That true self within us is God, and God cannot die. That source of all things may appear to go through the most horrible of things, but that is the movie that happens to us. That is the movie of the material existence. At the level of spirit, we are one. Our life does not begin at birth nor end at death. This is just a momentary phase in the evolution of our soul. No matter what happens to you in this life, possibilities are still there for you in the next. Therefore, of the suffering that goes on, it cannot take away anyone's ability to truly find happiness one day. Nonetheless, this does not mean that we should be inactive participants in the drama of life, that we should allow children to go without homes, that we should allow illnesses to continue to infect others with no cure, that we should sit blindly and idly as people get harmed under oppressive systems. Even though at our true self, suffering does not touch us. While we live it, it feels very real. And that reality is a reality that we can attend to. We should be empowered to make change, to spend on research for illnesses that have gone without cures and remedies. Let us raise awareness for humanitarian efforts to bring food and water to the needy, to accept immigrants who have been dishomed into our countries. Let us care for our fellow plants and animals that have also been dislodged due to our global industrialization. Let us care for mothers whom often bear the burden like no other when it comes to being responsible for carrying children. Let us raise awareness for those whom have had their bodies taken advantage of, and etc., etc., etc. Let us be engaged in what can be done, but not sit idly by. That is our responsibility as humans, and doing so we fulfill our purpose. But at the highest level, we know that we are beyond these things in the sense of being affected by the suffering of the body and the mind. This is the spirit of spirituality. Thank you, Bino Meow, for the hand hearts you sent too. Om Brahm Bhairvaya Namo Namaha. I love that, dear Bobby Joe. We should make our world better than we left it. Love binds us together as one. And dear Maverick, you share, if you could create a new world, it would be without suffering. Michelle, you share, we are each other. So yes, service to each other is natural, and we must speak if we can't act. And let us be empowered to create all these possibilities. Dear Cibledes, you'll have to tell me if I can pronounce that better. You ask, what can you do if you become anger? When we get angry? Well, first of all, there is a place and time for anger. Absolutely. We can hope to create situations in which it's not necessary. But for example, someone setting clear boundaries that have been greatly overstepped. Anger can be one of the most direct ways to express yourself. For example, if someone is actively abusing you or a loved one, then you have a right to get angry. But that anger is not to hurt them. It is to set clear boundaries that have been crossed, to show them where the line is, but not cross over into theirs. And this is the difference between using anger defensively and offensively. Anger can be a very great defense. Like if someone were to attack a mother's children, God forbid, you are walking home one day and out of nowhere someone tries to take your children. As a mother, you are absolutely empowered to get angry and do what you can to protect your loved ones. That's your duty. That's your dharma. Unfortunately, this is probably not the kind of anger that's put to question. The kind of anger that we're talking about is unnecessary anger, in which we use offensively to hurt others. That kind of anger we do have to be very careful with. This type of emotion we need to get very in touch with. We do so by being extra curious about it whenever it arises. At a moment anger arises, shift your attention from the person or thing that's making you angry and bring your attention immediately to the anger. because that deserves your attention. We ask ourselves in that moment, what is this anger? Where has it arisen from? Do I truly need to defend myself at this moment? Is there an alternative that I can do instead of raising my voice that might be even more effective? Can I remain calm? If so, how can I remain calm? Do I need to tell this person that I need to take some space? How might I express that I am angry without hurting them? In this way, we become inquisitive and we increase the distance between the emotion and the reaction. Sometimes that's all you need for it to subside. And other times it's what you need in order to make a different decision. Like giving some space to yourself and the problem. It can be just as relieving to walk away rather than doing anything. But we have to create that space through our curiosity. Recognize the emotion as something else that's occurring rather than you, because the true you is just a silent watcher of our own feelings, thoughts, and senses. The true self is just calmly observing, oh, anger has arisen, but we're not so much in touch with that higher self. We're right there in the action, feeling like we are the emotion. I am angry. But by becoming curious with it, we start to recognize that there is a distinction between yourself and what you're capable of, and the anger and what it's saying. Thank you, dear Marcy, for your music play. Radhe, Radhe. I like your triple P's, Bobby Joe. Pa-pa-pa. Pause, pray, proceed. I love that a lot. That's a nice motto. Thank you, dear Jay, for your dancing flower tone. Kring Kalikaye Namaha. Dear Anastasia, you ask, do I believe in free will? Absolutely, but it's very much limited. It's limited by the laws of nature. It's limited by our knowledge, limited by our thoughts, limited by our disabilities. But all of those limitations are not meant to restrict your free will. Actually, it's meant to channel it in the ways that you are capable of. Just like water flowing through a hose. Did you ever have a hose at the end of your, a nozzle at the end of your hose in which you can select different nozzles, maybe by rotating it? There's one nozzle that has very fine holes and mist comes out. Everyone loves the mist setting. We can change the setting, and it's a very big hole and it just splurts out, doesn't go very far. There's a little smaller hole that's like a jet and it shoots it farther. You do have such a nozzle, dear Ethan. Even if we don't, if we just have an open-ended hose, you can use your thumb, and if you put your thumb over it, then it increases the pressure at that point, and it shoots out much farther than it would. This is the nature of limitations. The more we limit without fully clogging the hole, the farther it goes without any thumb over the nozzle, it just goes a little bit, maybe a few feet. But if we can hold it just right, we can water the other side of our yard, maybe even our neighbor's yard. And if you completely block up the hole and you keep it there, eventually something will explode, and then you'll water your neighbor's yard. It's the same with our free will, is that there are limitations, but these limitations are only to increase the extent to which we have freedom in other directions. That's why we are so empowered by people who are public speakers that have faced difficulty in their life, maybe through physical disfigurement, through trauma or genetic conditions or other disabilities, that clearly they were not unable to reach our heart with their words or their actions, for example. That the limitation that they experienced in life, in some sense, propelled the truth of their experience further, for example, into our hearts. Why can't that be true for everyone, just in different ways? Right now, we just see limitations as something which restrict us. Actually, with the right perspective, they do just the opposite of that. I'm happy the metaphor made you laugh, dear Ethan. And thank you, dear Susie. I'm happy you enjoy my little Yamsox. Thank you, Malice, for your rose tome. Ariom Tat Sat. Satnam. Dear Anastasia, you ask, does that mean we should be doing things that make us physically uncomfortable? I wouldn't use the word should. Not a matter of what you should or should not be doing, but going outside our comfort zone is a way of bringing out some of the greatest truths. And we experience some of the highest joys from what we surmount by allowing ourselves some difficulty. But I would not become self-destructive to the point that you ultimately limit yourself in unnecessary ways. You don't have to be in pain 24/7. There is a balance that the Buddha found, for example, called the middle way. Neither absolute austerity nor absolute indulgence. Which means that when you need time to rest and take care of your body and mind, that's your time to rest. But if there's time to go beyond what you thought was possible, then I'd leave that door open for you. Dear Jay, you ask if I have practiced breath work. In each moment. You know, some people have that joke where they say, you are now consciously breathing. And they go, haha, now you're manually breathing. But that's exactly what the purpose of pranayama is to make every breath one that we take conscious charge of. That's one of the things we ultimately have free will over that we don't recognize. Is that our breath changes our physiology. Depending on how we breathe, different aspects of our nervous system are thus engaged. Short, shallow, sharp breaths engage our sympathetic nervous system, which is good if you want to run away from a tiger. But if you want to relax after a long day, then long, deep, smooth breaths are needed to engage the parasympathetic nervous system. So let every breath be one that we can use consciously. Thank you, dear Samra, for your hanging lights. Hare Krishna. Dear Judah girl, you share that you started grounding today, standing in grass for 6 minutes. Part of my hiccups. You enjoyed it. I love that. Even if it's 6 seconds, those are 6 seconds well spent. I'm happy to hear that. You are literally grounding. It's good. Thank you for your hydration reminder, dear Maverick. I'm not sure if I have a water bottle near me at the moment. Happy that you've enjoyed our stream so far, dear Jarrett. Yes, this is a Yamsox. It's a pun on my username. Kev, you share, you once got stung on a bee doing that. Don't stand in clover. I actually love clover. Probably because I'm Irish ancestrally, but most of my yard is covered in clover. It's much softer than grass. You just have to not step on a bee, which means being mindful of each step. Hello, Mr. Bates. Welcome. Dear Jarrett, you share you've been mostly listening while doing other things tonight, but it's still just as amazing. I'm so happy that you find value here. Now, I think it's a good time to begin to wrap up our live stream. Slowly, but surely. I'd like to check on my mother. Actually, she is struggling in health past few days. So, I want to see how she's doing, but I would like to go through a few things before we end our live stream. Thank you, dear Kazki, for your heart me. Ariom Tatsat. And dear Starlight Wow, thank you for your tiny. Yippee! Before we go, I'd like to ask you all my question of the day. Today I'm wondering, what inspires you about a new day? And thank you for your well wishes for my dear mother, Mama Moon. It's safe to say that regardless of what drama happens on Earth, the sun's gonna rise tomorrow. Maybe with or without us. But a new day is always possible. What inspires you about that? Well, the sun, for one, shares Maverick. The sun is inspiring, always giving, radiating its light, no breaks, for billions of years. Dear Kev, you share your mom inspires you. I love that. Judah girl, you share to make it better than the one before. That is inspiring as a possibility. The unknown, shares Angela. Taking breath. There's Bobby Joe. And Gazki, you share the chance for new exploration. So many things under the sun which we have yet to see. Dear Mina, you share honestly picking your outfit because you love to express yourself that way. So many fun choices. It's very wholesome. I love that for you, Joe. Ms. Bliss, you share, it's always a new day, new chance, fresh start each time we wake. You are right. The clean slate shares, yee yee. And that time has no indifference, shares Rob. Dear Talon, you share a new chance to learn and grow. That's the best part. A new day to be brave. I like that. Where's brave Bella when we need her? Angela, you share new challenges from which you can learn. The dust storm. Maverick, you always gaze at the sunrise or sunset. What a beautiful moment. Leon, you ask, what's my POV on the afterlife? Ah, you mean this? This life? See, if you live as if there is no tomorrow, yesterday, then today you will live as though this is your afterlife. Because then you know that heaven or hell, both is made possible now. Dear Gregor G, you like to watch the sunrise too. I like that. And little Moonbeam, thank you for wishing everyone a lovely day. Dear Bubbles, you share, as long as there is something to be aware of, every day is grace. I love that. Thank you, Kings and Queens Incorporated, for your rose. Om Dum Durgaye Namaha. Little Moonbeam, thank you for your heart, me. Om Som Somaya Namaha. That's actually a mantra for the moonbeams. They're known as Soma. Om Som Somaya Namaha. But I'm not sure what the equivalent would be for moonbeams with an N. I agree. A rebirth possible each day. Dear Bobby Joe, you can help and see another day to love and give light. Jarrett, you share the endless possibility of the becoming a better person than you were the day before. A renewal, shares dear Angela. Clean slate describes crossfires. Beautiful Maverick. Jay, you share anytime conscious and aware is a new day. Yes. This moment now. We begin anew today. Judah girl, you also enjoy learning at least one new thing a day. Knowledge is power. We can be empowered in our knowledge. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Dear Greg RG, you said someone else's. That's okay. You are welcome to appreciate and be inspired by the same thing as another. That's okay, dear Anastasia. Aska, you share that watching the sunrise and sunset is one of your favorite things. I love that. A very human thing, isn't it? Tamara, you share that you start each new day playing outside with your puppy, no matter the weather. Pure happiness. I so love that. Dear Jeff, you share, simply blessed to awake to another day. We never know when that opportunity won't exist in this life. Absolutely. Anastasia, your dog inspires you. She is love. I'm happy to hear that. Well, that's one thing that you can be inspired by, is the love that's possible to be shared with your dog every day. That is a grace. Yes. Maverick, you share your pets inspire me. The cattles, the horses, the cats, the chicken, the dog. I love that. G2 Infinity, you share the possibility of a new adventure every day. Maverick, you add your family, give you the strength to fight for a better world. I love that. And Cody Jane, you have the freedom to try again. I like that. These are all such wonderful answers. Lovely humans. Thank you. Namaskaram, Babijo. Maverick, you share, before you awaken, you never knew you could awake one day. That is profound. This Sangha shares all divine maze. I'm so happy you find inspiration here. So many inspiring stories shared throughout. Puppies are love, pure love. I agree, dear Angela. Speaking of love, pure love, I would like to share with you another part of this book, Hollywood to Himalayas, in which our author, Sadhvi Bhagawati, Saraswati, expresses her journey from trauma to pure love. We've read through some praises on the cover and back. We've read through the prologue. Now let's truly begin this book with the first chapter, called You'll Come Crawling Back. Ooh, what a title. It was the summer of 1990. I was 19 years old. The head of the eating disorder unit at the Midway Medical Center in Los Angeles beseeched and berated me as I signed my own discharge papers. You'll come crawling back, he said. You're sick. We've seen this 100 times or more. You need to be here. If you leave, yada 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 yada. And trigger warning for those who have gone through similar mental health problems as our author, though I'm sure you will be able to relate in an empowering way with our dear Sadhvi ji. I had completed less than a week of the 6-week intensive inpatient program after years of spending day after day stuffing myself in order to vomit again. Bulimia is the willing, sort of, conscious, sort of, controlled, not really, purposeful vomiting after ingesting large quantities of food. I wasn't even interested in the food. I just needed something to throw up. Sometimes food, sometimes gallons of water. My psychiatrist had put me in the hospital for the second time in 4 months. The administrator continued in his rote administrative voice, cautioning me about the illusion of recovery and making sure I understood that the hungry demon of bulimia sat heavily on my shoulder and would swallow me whole again, most likely soon. My only chance for survival, he made crystal clear, was to stay. But I couldn't. Nurses peering into open bathrooms to be sure I wasn't peeing. I was peeing and not throwing up. Never having even the privacy of a closed door had rendered me exhausted and constipated. I felt like someone in a prison scene out of a Dickens novel or a group therapy scene from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This was not the place for me. I had to leave. I told him the day before, "You can't. It's a 6-week program. You're sick and you need to be here." Finally, he acquiesced. But as I filled out the forms and checked the boxes about taking full responsibility for my own life, not holding the hospital liable, and acknowledging I was going against his professional advice, his voice changed. "I guarantee you'll be crawling back, crawling on your hands and knees." I walked out onto Olympic Boulevard knowing I would never go back there, and I knew I was in deep trouble. I had grown up in a land of privilege, in the coveted world of Hollywood. We lived in Studio City, just up the hill from Universal Studios. I went to a private prep school with actors and actresses and the children of actors, actresses, directors, and producers. I even auditioned for commercials when I was in elementary school and had a full set of headshots taken of my innocent face, looking sometimes giggly and sometimes sultry. I spent innumerable hours exclaiming, "Moist and chewy, it's delicious," in every possible permutation of speed, tone, emphasis, and pitch as I joined a child star friend for commercial acting classes at his house. I wasn't supposed to be in this much trouble. This was the summer of 1990. I had just finished my first year at Stanford and had spent the last few months in and out of eating disorder clinics. Over the next 6 years, I did everything I could to heal. I went to therapy, sometimes daily with a psychiatrist, sometimes weekly with an analyst. I took Prozac and Zoloft, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, that have shown great potential for treating depression, anxiety, addictions, and eating disorders. I hit baseball pats into my pillows until my arms felt like noodles, envisioning my father, who had sexually abused and then abandoned me. I recorded my dreams and then tried to make sense of them. I completed my bachelor's degree and the first half of a PhD program in psychology. I went to Overeaters Anonymous, the 12-step program for people with addictions to eating, or to starving themselves, or to eating and then throwing up. Hi, I'm bulimic, I would say at the start of the few meetings I attended before realizing it was not the right program for me. The required admission of my own powerlessness and surrender to a higher power gave me exactly the excuse I needed to continue to throw up. My higher power was taking a nap and didn't come through for me, I'd say to my sponsor. Not my fault. I started and then quit smoking cigarettes, as it seemed the thing to do in recovery, but actually nauseated me. I dated continuously, looking for a father in a range of 20-something-year-old boys. I got married to a super smart man who seemed to know me better than I knew myself, and I still suffered. Some of it helped, the therapy for sure. Knowing the reason I wanted to eat the entire world and throw it back up was an important first step. Realizing that the dissociated numbness I yearned for in Sara Lee cheesecakes, my apologies, and Mrs. Fields cookies was not due to being crazy or sick, but a normal and natural response to unexamined trauma gave me the courage to explore and be present with the trauma, so I didn't have to eat my way into a catatonic stupor. Knowing that the hatred I had toward my body was due to this very body having been the object of abuse gave me a vocabulary to address myself and the problem. I learned to say, "You can't eat his love or throw up your pain, no matter how sick you get, no matter how many hospitals you get admitted to, Manny isn't coming back." And sometimes it worked. The bulimia and my life became manageable, and frequently I even felt happy. The occasional relapse into vomiting didn't worry me, and I was usually able to bounce back without descending too deeply into the hell of self-loathing. Eating was still an effort, but I held myself on the okay side of pathology by a tightly wound coil of restriction and control. My biological father was still a huge trigger, but fortunately, his name didn't come up that often. I'd learned to navigate my way through life without thinking about him, other than the occasional fit of sobs when my husband, Jim, left for work, as though I were 3 and watching my father drive away forever, rather than 23 and watching my partner head off to work. Movies that ended in death or separation, AT&T commercials with the slogan "Reach out and touch someone," and summer camp goodbyes elicited not mere teary-eyed bittersweetness, but an abject, inconsolable misery. I also cried in yoga class in Shavasana, the final Shavasana, the final pose of a session, lying like a corpse, still and silent on my back. Gentle sobs racked my body, and I couldn't lie still. And every time Jim rolled over in bed, shaking the mattress, I woke up startled, unable to get back to sleep. Frequently, anorexia and sometimes bulimia, my condition combined the two, are much more about control than about food. When we feel out of control in life, we turn to something we can control. Our food, our weight, our body. Whenever I loosened the vice-like grip I had on my food intake, I would slip back into self-starvation or binging and vomiting. Starving myself or throwing up was my response of choice to stress. Continued struggle and low-grade suffering seemed like something I would face forever. I had heard everywhere, from in 12-step meetings to at the hospital, that struggles of addiction, depression, and childhood trauma are always with us. We can gain control over some of our lives and not engage in the addictive behaviors, but the internal mindset and emotional patterns are always there. The hungry ghosts may not gobble us alive, but it will be there forever, occasionally whispering insidiously in our ear. I knew, even more surely than I knew the day I left Midway Medical Center, that I would never be on my hands and knees, desperate for the help of that kind of hospital. I had my life together enough. I was getting straight A's in my PhD program and successfully navigating my way through early childhood. Didn't everyone cry during AT&T commercials? That is the end of chapter 1, which is short and to the point. I imagine that reading may have brought up many emotions for people since it's so real and comes from the experience of someone who definitely knows what it's like to experience the struggles of having a body and mind in this world. If that feeling has arose for you in any capacity, I hope that you know that you're not alone, in that there are many people that experience the same things, just in different ways. And this book would not be written if it didn't have a happy ending. So, as you can see from our author, smiling away as flower petals are floating about the air, know that we are just at the beginning of an uncomfortable yet transcendental journey as we go from the reality of suffering to the surreality of transcendence. If you are going through such things, do not hesitate to go through conventional means of help like therapy or group settings or any kind of medication or hospitals. As our author wrote, that they are certainly helpful and they begin to get us on the right path. But ultimately, our journey is more spiritual than mental, and there is something that goes beyond those things that complements them all. If you are inspired by that possibility, then I hope to see you next time when we continue reading from the second chapter now of Hollywood to the Himalayas, a journey of healing and transformation. Thank you for listening. Thank you, little moonbeam, for your rose. Arium Tat Sat. I'm very grateful that many of you know that you're not alone. Through powerful women like Sadhvi ji writing her stories, we are able to destigmatize problems of mental health and trauma, even if it's uncomfortable for us to read. Can you imagine how uncomfortable it would be to go through that and not feel like you are included in another person's experience? That would be a kind of discomfort that's even worse. So it's very good that we have discussions of these things in our world today. All right, I would like to end our live stream on a high note. So there's a very fun piece of music I wanted to listen to together as our meditation, and then we'll end our Sangha. So allow me to set that up. We're going to listen to a rap music video, just to be absolutely transparent. Usually I like to end a live stream with some sort of meditation. For example, a guided meditation or some mantra japa. I figured we'd switch it up and end with some musical expression of creativity from someone's journey. This was recommended by Sky Guardian since it touched him. It is a song by a being named Heaven X called Searching for the Light. And it is my wish that their words speak to you. You just have to make sure that you'll be able to see it. I'm going to turn off the background music so we can hear it fully and make sure that I have it open for you. Here we are. I might have to cover a little bit of my head, but that's okay. I think in the description, if I can just scroll down, there's a beautiful, description. A rainy tunnel, a single campfire on an empty beach, and elements from a dimly lit museum of spiritual knowledge. These visuals paint the backdrop of Heaven X's newest music video, Searching for the Light, which is an exploration of Heaven's journey of self-discovery from hip-hop roots to eternal truths. Here we are.
Don't keep yourself in darkness. Go to the light. Go to the light.
Yeah. Hi, Jason. Say hi.
I be searching for love. I be searching for love. Touchdown, man, I touchin'. Discipline, I toughen. Militant, my dungeon with that guillotine protection. Social reduction, don't need all this section. Saving all y'all zombies, we ducking from abduction. Tapped out, now I tap in. Flow is on that backspin. Never nap, no need no napkins. Never capping with my captains. Stay blessed like the Hamptons, but my people's in bandage. Can't ban us, we just bandits. We looking for the answers. Seek within, I find it. seek within, I'm grinding. 740 flying in my alkaline, aligning with the metaphors combining. Got that metamorphic timing, it's that eternal shining. Got the shovel and the mining.
As I lay me down tonight, I pray you hear my cry. I just wanna do what's right. I just wanna live my life. I'm searching for the light.
Spiritual, my morals. Spiritual, my quarrels. Fight for all my laurels. We just rolling with immortals. We open up them portals. We going through them ovals. Life is rotation, but my celebration YOLO. Searching for my teachers. Searching for my ether. Remember Sony speakers. Remember phony sneakers. We came a long way walking. We came a long way talking. This life teach me everything. We reaching for your noggin. From KRS to honest. That be on my holy chest. Bhagawati, holy text. How I start with heaven X. Gotta give my very best. Higher than your A-list. Me just in gardens. I'm smiling, I stay blessed.
As I lay me down tonight, I pray you hear my cry. I just wanna do what's right. I just wanna live my life. I'm searching for the light. As I lay me down tonight, I pray you hear my cry. I just wanna live my life. I just wanna do what's right. I'm searching for the light. I'm searching for the light.
That was the start to Om Kring Kali Kai Namaha. Clearly Kali liked that. She had to come make her presence known. But thank you for suggesting that, dear Sky Guardian G, and thank you for listening, everyone. Goes to show that if for whatever reason spirituality was exclusive to a path beyond, such genuine and modern forms of expression like rap, well, you'd be wrong, because they're absolutely one and the same, since there is a way in which everything can be made spiritual. I love all the references in that song, and if you heard at the beginning, instead of producer tag, it was A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada talking about coming to the light. He was the founder of the Hare Krishna movement. The one who sings Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that was the end of our meditation. And yes, listening to music can count as a meditation. It was also a kind of submission for our show and tell by Sky Guardian G. Normally I would like for you to send things that are of your own creation, but I make some exceptions if they can be used at the end for a meditation. If there is anything else that you wanted to share, personally, please check out the show and tell application form in the link tree in my bio, where you can submit videos and audios and images and documents for something that you would give me the honor of amplifying into our space for others to experience too. Thank you. thank you everyone for being here. We now conclude our live stream today. What I was going to say is, if there's anything of value of this live stream that you found true to you, you are welcome to check out the recording, which will be uploaded to my YouTube channel, Yamsox Lives. It's also linked in the link tree in my bio, and the meditations and readings have their own playlists there, which I especially recommend if you ever wanted to be caught up on our readings, since I recognize that, it's not expected that you show up to each live stream, especially at the right time to hear the readings. But if you're really enjoying the book, well, please feel free to catch up in the playlists where I just upload the readings. Thank you, the Bug, for your wonderful hand hearts. There's some hand hearts for you. Harium Tat Sat. Yes, I will hydrate. I hydrated with something new last night. I made ghee tea. Ghee is a form of clarified butter. So I basically put butter in water. I put some spices in it, and that was my tea. It was very delicious. Thank you all for being here. I hope this live stream has been of service to the divinity within you, which this is an offering for. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Murtyur Ma Mritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Good night, dear told of love. Thank you for some healing love from my mother, dear G to infinity. Thank you for sending love from divine source to all, dear Magdalene. And thank you for your recommendation of golden milk, dear Myra. I am curious what that is. Is it milk and turmeric? Because I do love drinking that from time to time. I recommend it to others too. Meena, you share that ghee is a common medicine in Pakistan house. I love that. Goodbye, dear little moonbeam. And thank you for your well wishes for all of us in La La Land, dear Greg RG. Good night, dear Angela Assad. Hello and goodbye, dear Dopamine Queen. Thank you, Violet. Much love, Alexander. Doom Night, Miss Blizz, Talem. May you all have a wonderful rest of your present moment. And as Bubble says, let us each continue to be clear instruments of extraordinary presence. Namaste. Good night, Jared. Good night, Kazki. Deepest love and sweet dreams.